Over the weekend, Florida governor and GOP presidential candidate Ron DeSantis doubled down on his war on wokeness and responded to former President Donald Trump criticizing the term. DeSantis says it's a form of cultural Marxism. Let's listen.
We know what woke is. It's a form of cultural Marxism. It's about putting merit and achievement behind identity politics, and it's basically a war on the truth. And as that has infected institutions, it has corrupted a lot of institutions. So you've got to be willing to fight the woke. We've done it in Florida, and we proudly consider ourselves the state where woke goes to die. We know what woke is. It's a form.
In case you missed it, Trump blasted the term woke and presumably those who use it while in the Hawkeye state last week. Let's watch that.
It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. You know, it's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is. It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke because I hear woke, woke, woke. You know, it's like just a term that half the people can't even define it.
It sounds to me like Donald Trump's been listening to Rising.
Yes, we once had a guest on who struggled to define it when put on the spot by you. Look, so DeSantis, I think, gave a okay-ish definition of wokeness, except for the cultural Marxism part, which, well, then it's like, okay, we'll define cultural Marxism, which I don't think many people are able to do. Look, wokeness, to me at least, is a the term has stuck because it's 4 letters long and it's 1 syllable and it's easy to deploy. It is describing what we used to call political correctness, which is a longer phrase and clumsier to say. It's not a perfect overlap. People are referring to, pronouns and cultural appropriation and DEI stuff and just liberal, socially, culturally left things that conservatives don't like in schools and books in the workplace. All that stuff is falling under the label of woke. Is there like a coherent ideology to what is wokeness? Not really. So it's more like a list of things that people don't like. Some of these things a lot of people don't like, even if they're just, Latinx people, even under that identity group, don't like the term very much. A lot of people, not just conservatives, are worried about gender stuff, sports teams, locker rooms, that kind of thing. A smaller proportion of people, just kind of conservatives, want to, make drag shows illegal or something. It's all getting thrown under wokeness. I don't know if that's fair or not. It doesn't really matter, but that's what we're talking about when we describe wokeness.
So a USA Today Ipsos poll found that a majority of Americans are inclined to see the word woke as a positive attribute, not a negative one. 56% of those surveyed say the term means to be informed, educated on, and aware of social justice issues. That includes not only 3/4 of Democrats, but also more than 1/3 of Republicans. Over 39% say instead the word reflects more, or like what you have described, to be overly politically correct and police others' words. That's the view of 56% of Republicans. It's interesting that just over half, but not some overwhelming majority of Republicans, see this as a negative phrase. And then there's also the question of, even if you don't like the conservative version of wokeness, if that is such a political priority for you that you would be interested in a candidate like DeSantis, who has fully made his entire campaign pitch about that one narrow issue. And there's an interesting question as to whether or not Donald Trump, who has been very insightful on these matters, has read the tea leaves and said that there's actually not a huge appetite for a white guy in his 40s using a weirdly grammatically incorrect slang term for awake on the campaign trail, him walking around saying woke, 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 woke. It's a weird vibe that I think is going to turn off a lot of people. And in classic Trumpian form, I got to say, in a way that gave me a little bit of a chuckle, he managed to just cut through all the nonsense. I mean, what do you think about Trump's rhetorical spin there?
Yeah, it's politically perceptive in the same way that Trump's not going to go all in on criticizing age, because that doesn't play to his strengths either, because he's advanced age, criticizing Joe Biden's age, for instance, because he's not, that's not a good pitch for him too. I think he's probably perceives, or maybe has competent advisors who have told him, most of the people who are crusaders against wokeness are lining up, or the very loud people who are obsessed with that in the conservative world, conservative media, social media, those people are DeSantis people. So he's not leaning into that, doesn't help. though that's not going to be what he's going to win on.
And
he's
Trump-
going to trying to undercut DeSantis a little bit there, saying, which he has when he talks about Disney. So why are we going to war with Disney?
That's
making it sound like a waste of time is
and not
is
just a
Trump's
waste
strategy.
of time, a civil liberties issue. When you gave your definition of wokeness, it was interesting to me that you pointed to all of these kind of cultural changes,
Sure.
personal preferences that are happening in school, in family life, in churches, in books. And Republicans like Ron DeSantis have said, well, we're going to pass using federal, state level enforcement. We're going to have promote laws that ban certain kinds of individual behaviors and different kinds of literature and various kinds of spaces. And you can say, well, it's to save the kids or whatever, but it's a choice to politically, as the political group that's supposed to be anti-government enforcement in your lives, to identify that there are things happening culturally that you don't like, and to try to use the force of law to change the culture to your preferences. For all of the talk of indoctrination, I think the public can perceive a difference between what they feel are organic changes in the culture, growing acceptance of various kinds of historically marginalized groups, and this state-led force to subscribe to more regressive, older kinds of ideology. And to the extent that if they let things happen naturally, there are some overreaches on the left that I think would get natural pushback. I think putting flames behind it and political force behind it is turning off a lot of people from wanting to engage in this issue altogether, and they're throwing their hands up and saying, well, is someone going to just talk about inflation? Is someone going to talk about the fact that I can't afford rent and that we've had a 500% increase in the cost of homes over the last 20 years? Is any political candidate going to talk about those kinds of things? Maybe that's why there's an appetite for someone like RFK Jr., or even Marianne Williamson, who just came out with an economic bill of rights last week, and are some of the only people who are talking about issues like the environment that are still highly ranked priorities for so many voters.
We want to be, obviously my ideology is the leave me alone constituency, leave me alone from government. So, and I try not to advise things as politically good just because I think they would actually be good policy, because maybe they're not good. I think they're good policy. Are they good politics? I have no idea. But there are, I think, a lot of people out there with some libertarian-ish impulses across the political spectrum on, you may not like all of the things I described as wokeness, but do you really want the government to prohibit you? You don't want it forced on you. Maybe that means we're going to necessarily have some conflicts about what goes in the school curriculum, the public school curriculum, and definitely not wanting companies to have to follow new DEI requirements that are super obnoxious. I mean, that's one of the ways I think in which people actually end up engaging with what can credibly be described as wokeness most often, is in these corporate training things that are. But is the conversation going to stay there when you're also having people tear down pride displays at Target? Is Target's DEI policy going to be overshadowed by folks filming TikToks of them just destroying public property? It should be a leave me alone issue, not the government ban. I mean, the first one of the Tennessee bill to ban drag performances in public just got struck down by a court, as all of these things inevitably are, because they're just obviously not First Amendment compliant. They pass in some state where you have a judge who says, no, that's fine. Eventually it's going to make its way to the Supreme Court, where it's going to get struck down because we have a very First Amendment affirming court. So just saying, don't go that route.
Yeah. Well, we'll have more Rising V right after this.